Okay, this thing is really weird, you guys. Like, it looks like a regular old, ooh, there we go, M.2 SSD, but not only can you glue one of these to one of these, but you can actually have it show up as a single drive of up to 32 terabytes. And they also claim that built into this thing, they've got SLC flash. You guys remember SLC? One cell equals one bit. Super fast, super reliable, and super expensive. But at a price of just $330? Just what kind of scam are these guys trying to pull here? I don't know. But I know our sponsor Ridge Wallet isn't pulling any scams. Ridge Wallet wants to redefine the wallet with its compact frame and RFID blocking plates. Check out how they can keep your wallet bulge down and use offer code Linus to save 10% and get free worldwide shipping. When I say SSD, Enmotus probably isn't the first word to pop into your mind, but chances are that you have heard of them before, even if it was indirectly. Their Fuzedrive tiered storage software was actually licensed by AMD as the first version of their Store My RAID feature for Ryzen and Threadripper. And this, as far as I can tell, is their first consumer hardware offering, an SSD that's also called Fuzedrive. They say it's 2 SSDs in one and runs with artificial intelligence that gives it endurance as good as a Samsung 970 Pro, which, you smell that? Kind of smells like grade A marketing to me. I mean, it's challenging enough to put one SSD in a package this size, let alone 2, and we can clearly see from the PCB layout and the markings on the dies that this is just a regular vanilla QLC SSD with a single controller on it. Except maybe it's not. The big reason why adding layers causes endurance to drop is because of the voltages required to write to each layer. But what most people don't realize is that multi-level NAND can be used in a single level mode where only a single layer of each cell is actually used at a time. Now, it cuts the capacity of QLC to 1/4, but it also offers nearly the same speed and nearly the same endurance of native SLC. This concept is nothing new though, and large vendors like Intel or Samsung have actually been using this SLC mode to cache their drives and improve performance for years now. But here's the new idea. Most SSDs that use SLC mode caching use a dynamically sized cache rather than dedicating a chunk of the SSD for it. And AnandTech reports that Intel's 660p, for example, starts out with 76 gigabytes of SLC cache, but then that can go as low as just 6 gigs as the drive fills up. That means that it will sacrifice over time both the performance and endurance that it was supposed to gain from the SLC cache. So back to Enmotus's marketing claims then. They're taking a different approach by creating a permanently segmented 1.5 terabyte QLC SSD with a separately addressable 128 gig SLC portion. I didn't put a graphics card in here. One moment, please. Man, I love how unhappy the D drive is. You know what I'm saying? It's so upset. Hey, the performance looks all right though. It's rated for 3470 megabytes per second reads, and it's just shy of that, and rated for 3000 megabytes per second writes, which is fine, just fine for a QLC SSD. Wait, no, that's really good for QLC. Now those numbers are much better than what you'd expect writing to QLC flash. That is the range that I would expect as long as the SLC cache is working correctly, because that is way better than what we would see writing to, in particular, QLC flash in QLC mode. Compared to our PCI Express Gen 4 TLC boot drive though, these numbers don't look that impressive, even with Enmotus's SLC caching. What they also have up their sleeve though is the ability to quickly and easily extend the SSD volume with a hard drive. So let's see how that looks. You can see this illustrated when we compare to our PCI Express Gen 4 TLC boot drive. Read speeds, thanks to the wider bus, are way better on that one. But write speeds, because we're not taking advantage of an SLC cache, actually kind of suck by comparison. Theoretically, this is as simple as plugging in a hard drive. We then fire up Enmotus's Fusion X software, and we're gonna make a non-bootable Fuzedrive. So our Enmotus SSD is our fast drive, and our Seagate hard drive is our slow drive. I mean, I guess we could do it the other way around, but that would be very stupid. Oh, hey, here it goes. Oh wow, you can actually untier it when you're done if you don't like it anymore for whatever reason. That's cool. Truthfully, I kind of expected the 128 gig SLC drive to appear separately in Device Manager, but it doesn't. It's just permanently allocated to accelerate your 1.5 terabyte SSD. So in a way, this is not dissimilar to when people used to manually over-provision the flash in their drives for more consistent performance way back in the day before trim and garbage collection had matured to the point that they have now. Oh, it's done. Drive 3 is made up of drives 2 and 1. 1 plus 2 is 3. Oh, and so our Fuzedrive, all 2 tiers of it are totally invisible to me now, and it just shows up as a 12.3 terabyte hard drive. So we've got all the capacity of both, but they're combined. Let's just I don't know, let's throw some footage onto it or something. Okay. The SSD caching is definitely working. What I want is to actually hit the hard drive. I want to see this go down to 200 megabytes a second. Anthony says I won't be able to do it, but I see that as a challenge. While this is running is actually a good time to bring up that you can run a configuration like this as your boot drive. So you can actually run Windows off of this, which, as we've talked about numerous times in the past, is an ideal use case for this type of caching or tiering solution, because your operating system tends to hit the same files many times, and then most of it can sit in cold or warm storage only to be accessed infrequently. And that's exactly how this works. Okay, I'm just gonna keep doing this. Yeah, we're still well over 2 gigs a second. You know what? I was probably expecting to be able to break through it because most of the caching solutions that I've used before use much smaller SSDs, but I mean, even though it's QLC flash, it's much faster than a hard drive. So being able to write to, a 1.5 terabyte of SSD means it would come up, but you would basically never actually see that hard drive-like speed. Maybe the first time you load up, Call of Duty, if you haven't played it in a year, you would have to actually pull the whole thing from hard drive, but then it should promote that data into the SSD, so the next time you fire it up, it's quick. One of the dangers, however, of using a NAND-based storage device, like an SSD as a cache, is that a write cache, well, by its very nature, gets written to far more frequently than a drive that you're just using normally, because you write to it once when you write the data to the combined drive, and then if that data gets demoted, it gets replaced with something else, and then if it gets promoted back into the cache, you write that same data again. That can be really problematic. But Enmotus says that with their gold endurance, they managed to somehow dramatically outperform the mere 600 program erase cycles that their QLC NAND is rated for. I mean, how can they claim with a straight face that their drive is good for something like 3 times the endurance that Samsung advertises for their shiny new 980 Pro? I mean, we looked at it. This is a fairly bog standard Phison controller QLC SSD. Well, it turns out this data is kind of a your mileage may vary situation. Enmotus says that hot data that is frequently accessed spends a lot more of its time in that SLC portion than on the warm QLC layer. So unlike traditional SLC caching, where storage from the whole drive is used for in-flight writes, and then they just flush out the cache when it's idle, Enmotus is using a dedicated 8-channel NAND chip, and their tiering mechanism activates on write. So writes are immediately done on SLC, then they're only moved out when they haven't been modified in a while. That actually helps prevent wear on the QLC layers. Now for something like our Blackmagic cameras, where we put M.2 SSDs into USB enclosures and then can write as much as the entire drive in a single session, there'd be next to no benefit from this approach. But for a desktop user who's not likely to routinely write hundreds of gigabytes of data, Or when they do, it might be a program or game that they're also gonna be, playing and using frequently for a bit. Starting to make a lot of sense. And that's exactly who Enmotus says they're marketing these drives for. For the time being, they're only available directly from Enmotus, but they're hoping to partner with system integrators in the future. So, bottom line, it's always a balancing act. You've got your price, you've got your performance, and you've got your endurance. Pick two. But Enmotus thinks they've got that sweet spot that comes closest to picking all three. And they actually even put RGB on it, even though we never did turn that on. You do, of course, give up a little of each of those things to get this kind of balance, though. So what do you guys think? Is it worth it? One thing I know is worth it is subscribing on Floatplane for that sweet behind-the-scenes content. Madison did an office tour that was very her style, for sure.
I'm sorry, I did make you look bad. I didn't mean to.
And it's also worth checking out our sponsor, Ting. Thanks to Ting Mobile for sponsoring today's video. They've got new rates that make it easier than ever to see how much you can save by switching to Ting. Unlimited talk and text is just $10, and data plans start at $15 with unlimited data for $45 a month. And if you liked their previous pay-for-what-you-use plans, they're still there. They're just called Ting Flex plans, and they charge just $5 a gig. Data can also be shared if you have a family plan, so you can connect more phones to save more, and you get the same nationwide coverage in the US and award-winning customer service that you remember. Pretty much any phone will work with Ting, so check them out at linus.ting.com, and you can get a $25 credit towards your account. If you guys enjoyed this video, maybe check out one of our previous videos exploring the concept of SSD or Optane caching on slower spinning Rust. Really is cool stuff. Enterprise storage concepts in your gaming PC. Wow.